welcome YouTubers and Doctor Who fans to another Doctor Who Big Finish audio review. After quite a long hiatus, we are back with the Big Finish reviews. We'll be taking a look at a release that came out in January 2023, Time War 5, Cass. TG Productions isn't only Big Finish audio reviews, we also have classic Doctor Who reviews as well, and a series that's still continuing, a ranking of all the Doctors and their stories. But here it is Time War 5 Cass. So let's dive into this release, go over the stories, and then final points at the end. So let's take a look at Time War 5 Cass. The 8th Doctor's catalogue by Big Finish has been nothing short of spectacular, dating back to January 2001 with Storm Warning featuring Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor along with Charlie Pollard on the massive monthly range consisting of 275 Big Finish adventures dating back from July 1999 but concluded in March 2021. Now we're seeing a shift with Big Finish by focusing on more box set releases. This has been apparent with the 8th Doctor for several years, dated back all the way to the Dark Eyes series, which among fans, one of the best series to ever be produced by Big Finish. Now we are on the 5th installment of a popular Big Finish series, the 8th Doctor Time War series, with Paul McGann leading the show along with the companion and the name of the box set release, Cass, played by Emma Campbell-Jones. Now for a point of contention when it comes to this release. Do you need to listen to the previous installments of the 8th Doctor Time War series? The answer is no, you don't. I will argue that it will enhance the listening experience and you might enjoy it even more if you did that. I'm not saying that. But if you haven't got Time War 1 to 4 and you got your eyes on this, you don't need to have any previous context. It's not mandatory. But if you did get the previous Time War series box sets, it would just probably enhance your enjoyment of that. The 3 stories in this set: Meanwhile Elsewhere by Tim Foley, Vespertine by Lou Morgan, and Previously and Next Time by James Moran. The first 2 stories are one-part stories, 60-minute in length, and the final story, Previously Next Time, that is over 2 parts long, 2 hours. It's certainly been a long time coming to see the 5th installment. I believe the Time War 4 came out in September 2020, so the hiatus has been quite painful. And if you look at the Time War 6 release, you're probably gonna cry. Anyway, let's move on to the first story of this box set, Meanwhile Elsewhere by Tim Foley. Meanwhile Elsewhere is a story designed to reintroduce the listener to the Time War series after a over 2-year hiatus of the range. As I previously stated, it works as a good jumping on point for the series, and if that's what you want to do, you can 100% do that without listening to the 4 previous releases. You are introduced to the new TARDIS team, Alex Campbell, which is played by Sonny McGann, very beginner friendly and a good jumping on point. Bliss was the companion before Time War 5. Now it does give a reason, not this story in particular, but this box it does give a reason of her absence. But the reason why is because the actress, it couldn't work out logistically. So this release doesn't just pretend that doesn't exist. It gives you something and acknowledges it. But that's the thing, that just happens. Sometimes things just don't work out logistically. There may be scheduling problems. So as the name of the box set, Cass in the beginning stage is put into the centre of the story and instantly likeable. First appearance, of course, in Night of the Doctor, all the way back to the 50th anniversary of the show, gets a Big Finish appearance. Does this, however, hinder the Night of the Doctor, just like how Caves of Androzani was hindered because it looked like the Fifth Doctor saved a complete stranger to sacrifice his own life? So does it have like a Caves of Androzani kind of problem with it, where it just kind of hinders what Night of the Doctor was all about, like Caves of Androzani? That could well be a good point of contention you can bring up about this release. That is completely subjective though. But what's excellent about this story is how well paced it is. Quick into the action. The listener is unlikely to lose what's going on because the plot is quite thin, but it goes along at a good pace. Set on a spaceship where time is fracturing, open up portals to quite sinister places, and a corrupt, vile diplomat played by the excellent Jay Griffin, who plays Hieronymy Friend. And I hope she's in another release, because she was the star of the show in this box set. And I think that will be the case. Hieronymy Friend is attempting to create unstable super soldiers. She's sassy, sarcastic, and mad as a hatter. She might be the winning supporting character for me in this story. The fractures are connecting to different planets and destroying the ship slowly. The Galaban flies are a foe that get brought into the story and have the ability to enter their host and kill them by creating a hive inside of them. Gross. You can tell the Doctor's feelings on the Time War. He wants nothing to do with it. He doesn't want to be a hero, doesn't want to be a warrior. Very nice character development, which will move you into the Night of the Doctor. So you can tell this is very late in the 8th Doctor's run. This is a very fun, slightly paradoxical story. Jay Griffiths is definitely the highlight for me in this box set. Fantastic supporting character. Meanwhile, Elsa does what it's intended to do. It's the reintroduction of the Time War series. And Tim Foley, he doesn't overcomplicate it. It's a thin plot, but it's extremely easy to connect with the story. It flows at a nice pace. And Tim Foley did exactly what was needed in the reintroduction of the Time War series. It's a 7.5 out of 10 for me for Meanwhile Elsewhere. Great story. The second story from the box set is Vespertine by Lou Morgan, she's been quite on the ball recently by writing stories from the Time War Gallifrey series and as well the very popular Master series. So Vespertine was a story I was looking forward to. She's got a good list of stories that she's written. But I haven't experienced a lot of her work. I just hear very good things. And yeah, I agree. The previous story, Meanwhile Elsewhere, is very character development, very character driven. I can say the same thing with Vespertine, maybe even more so than the previous story. That worked more as an reintroduction. This one's more character development, especially on Cass. Vespertine is a story focused on character development. Cass, who has always wanted to see the universe, admires a person and an explorer called Hudson Sage, an explorer of the Vespertine ship. However, it plays on the idea that meeting someone who you admire could be very bad. And the standout performer from this story is definitely 100% Simon Shepherd playing Hudson Sage. And I love the sound design. Listen to this one when it was quite night. Just the creaking of the ship, the atmosphere underneath the ice. It's been so long since I've listened to Big Finish. I have been having a hiatus from them. That's more just financial reasons, really. But it made me think, God, I've really been missing out on quality. What's odd is the Doctor recognises the ship and the layout like he's almost been there before. So he's getting rather... Well, even when he mentions that himself, he gets very surprised that he did mention that and he does recognise it. and he tries to rationalise it, but he's been on many ships in his travel. And to put a little bit more limelight on the Vespertine ship, this is not a spaceship, this is an actual ship made of wood. Again, it plays on, this whole set is quite paradoxical in its themes, which I love, and that's very apparent throughout the entire range of stories. It's that the exterior is rotten, crumbling away, decaying, but the interior, for some reason, is completely intact, looks brand new, and they find Hudson Sage, who, he should be dead, but he's in the interior of the ship. The research station, that shouldn't exist. And the Vespertine ship under the ice, it shouldn't even be there. That's what I like about Vespertine. It's a fun, paradoxical story. Lou Morgan, again, wonderful story by the writer. She's amazing. And again, top performances. And my favourite supporting character, Simon Shepherd, who played Hudson Sage. 7.5 out of 10 for me. An excellent story. Though so far, the first two stories, I haven't got that Time War centered feel. That's more of the last story in the set. And I do have a point of contention which some people I think need to be aware of when entering this release. But I will bring that up in the concluding thoughts. So let's move on to the final story of the set, which is Previously Next Time by James Moran. So the final story of the release is Previously Next Time by James Moran. I will say this just straight away. It was my personal favourite from the box set, more Time War focused. And yet again, with all the three stories, they go for this paradoxical type of story. Again, it's apparent in the final story. And it's more delivered to bring the story forward, to try and work out what's going on. Told in flashbacks. Now I gotta say, the 8th Doctor, Paul McGann, was absolutely damn hilarious in this. He was sassy and sarcastic, especially when he was being interviewed by the lead examiner. This is apparently by blowing up a monument. This monument, by the design of it, looks awfully familiar for some reason. But when the lead examiner is stressed, the Doctor says, "Are you on work experience?" Which is just so sassy. I love it. Sassy Paul McGann, love it. What's odd is that everyone in this city, this was also in a pre-introduction scene, they don't know about the Daleks and they don't know about the Time War. They never heard any of it, which the Doctor finds at the beginning quite troublesome, but then he's thinking rather hopeful that, is this a sign that the Time War has been concluded, but it's gone, it's over? How does everyone know that the Daleks and the Time War aren't a thing anymore? Everyone knows the Daleks when the Time War has been raging on. The previous stories were more character focused and had good themes and messages, especially Vespertine with the whole idolizing people is something that can hurt you in the long run. This story isn't driven on character development, though it is dialogue heavy to move the plot along. The Daleks are weaponizing the use of time missiles, but once detonated, can create the manipulation of time by either freezing it or going back in time and creating time loops, which will eventually destroy the whole fabric of the universe. James Moran, I would say, balanced the witty dialogue and the serious gravitas plan of the Daleks very well, so one isn't overshadowing the other. I think the dialogue is wonderful and very well written and hilarious in some lines. Actually, I'll go over one more because it's part of the story I really like about it. The Doctor mocks the Daleks that they're playing on easy difficulty. It's all a game to them. Again, that was hilarious, but what the Doctor said to the Dalek almost made the Dalek not comprehend the outcome of it. The Doctor said, what would the Daleks do if they wiped out everything? And the Dalek, for a few seconds just paused and almost couldn't comprehend the question, and then eventually said the universe would be beautiful. I just found that scene just something that sticked out to me, that I liked a lot, because it tells me that what are the Daleks good for if there's no one else to be their adversaries? And that kind of puts this Dalek maybe in like an inner conflict of, how are we useful anymore, and what are we going to do if there's no enemy or other species that we can't be superior to? Part 1 is amazing. I would say the flashback sequences during the beginning and middle parts, I know why it's there and it's necessary. It can feel a little bit padded, but at the end it kind of concludes this is part 1, by the way. It concludes everything and everything kind of makes sense. Part 1 gets an 8 out of 10 and part 2 yet again it gets an 8 out of 10. Now everyone in the city, as I stated, doesn't know what Daleks are and what the Time War is, but then their city itself has so many Dalek connotations to it, it's almost like they're oblivious to it. But no more going into that story, I want you to experience the rest for yourself. It was my favourite from the set, with an 8 out of 10. It was Time War focused, very funny and witty in some places. Definitely my favourite. If I was to rank all the stories, Previously Next Time by James Moran is my favourite. A little padded in some places, but it's necessary, the flashbacks. Then I would say it's tough with Meanwhile Elsewhere and Vespertine, because I rated them both the same. But I will give number 2 towards Meanwhile Elsewhere by Tim Foley. I think it did well to reintroduce you to the Time War series, the 8th Doctor Time War series, and then Vespertine. I don't even want to say the word last place, because none of these stories are bad in any way, shape or form. I enjoyed this entire set. Say 7.5 is the lowest rating, and that's still a very positive high score for a story. Meanwhile Elsewhere is a wonderful character development to begin the set. Vespertine focuses on themes with admiring people that can turn very bad, and Previously Next Time is a 2-hour traditional and paradoxical Time War centered story to end the set on a high. The story, the box set, I would say, is paradoxical and witty throughout the entire box set. My final concluding statement: Time War 5 is a set of witty and paradoxical stories that reintroduces the 8th Doctor Time War series. A brilliant beginning to the year for Big Finish. It is an 8 out of 10 for me. I recommend it. You can jump straight to it as well without listening to the 4 other previous releases. And yes, Time War 5, Cass, ends on a cliffhanger. That cliffhanger is related to Cass. And yes, you have to wait until April 2024 to get the next Time War 8th Doctor release. Very sad.